Two of the most dominant men in pro wrestling history will clash at WrestleMania 30. Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. If anyone can defeat the streak, it'll be the Beast. Brock is the hungry, unstoppable force. He has his sights on the streak, while Taker is wanting to keep his legacy alive. Join us tonight as we start off on our 3-part series on ending the streak. Tonight, we'll be talking about the world famous, the phenom, The Undertaker.
You've been trying, but you're nothing like me. You can make it, but you're not fooling me. If you jump in the fire, I'm watching you burn. I'll be waiting till you get what you deserve. You've been lying across the 7 seas, tried to hide it, but now it's sink or swim. If you jump in the fire.
So, thank you guys so much for joining us tonight for Talking Elite. I am joined by a great panel tonight. So first off, down below, we have everybody's favorite bearded wonder. We have Adam. Adam, thank you for coming on tonight, brother. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm excited for this this little 3-parter, man. It's one of the most shocking moments in professional wrestling history.
Like just that face. All I see is the guest movement face guy.
Yeah.
Man, like it's a very exciting show for sure. Next, we have the 5-star man himself. We have Mr. Jacobs. Thanks for coming on, Mr. Jacobs.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be talking about my favorite wrestler, my favorite character of all time, The Undertaker. The main reason why I am a fan. So let's do it.
All right, man. Well, hey, let me ask you this before we get started. So, on The Undertaker's entrance, is it bong, gong, or dong?
Because it's definitely not the third one.
Yeah. Well, if it's bong, wouldn't that be RVD?
Oh, that's a good one. It's
they call it a
creeper joke, a sleeper joke on you.
Yeah.
And for Dong, it'd probably be Val Venus, so
that makes sense.
Oh, he's choppy.
Yeah, he's choppy.
Choppy. And high.
All right, and then finally we have the ringleader of the All Elite Zone Circus. He is our producer. He is half of our graphic workers. He is the biggest CM Punk fan to date. Please welcome Connor.
It's great to be on. Doing a 3-parter. So,
yep, this is the first one in All Elite Zone history and Talking Elite. So, thank you guys so much for listening in as we get started. For those of you guys that were watching last night on our Wednesday night stream, just before we get started talking about The Undertaker, Connor just announced that we will have a Canadian group for the All Elite Zone. All Elite Zone Canada will be dropping here very shortly. So we'll be excited for that. So make sure you guys stay tuned for our socials. And while you guys are doing that, make sure you guys hit the like button down below, hit the bell, subscribe on Spotify, wherever you're listening at. We thank you so much for listening. Now let's talk about the great Mark Calaway, The Undertaker. So do you guys know, let me ask you a little bit trivia question. Who was Mark Calaway's first official opponent?
Who? That's I'm Undertaker.
So before he became The Undertaker, this is like even pre-WCW.
Mean Mark. Okay.
When he was Mean Mark, yep. I think it was called Texas Red.
I'm gonna throw a wild one out there. I know Undertaker wrestled in ECW a little bit. I'm gonna say Stunning Steve Austin.
Nope. Adam, do you know?
Sid Vicious?
Nope. So, Mark Calaway, his first ever wrestling character was called the Texas Red. In his first match, he got his ass kicked by Bruiser Brody.
Oh, that.
Okay. That's some good trivia. That's good trivia.
Wasn't that WCCW?
Yeah, that was like right before WCW. Yeah, it was WCCW because it was down here in Texas.
Did you go
Yeah,
to it?
WCCW here in Dallas. Oh, I'm not that old. Oh, there goes Mr. Jacobs.
He was having. I could hear it in his mic. He was having audio issues.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so no worries. So his first ever match was against Bruiser Brody, and it was also the first time that Paul Bearer was his manager. Paul Bearer at the time was known as Percy Pringle III.
Yep.
What a great name.
Yep, got his ass kicked, and that's where he would learn really about the professional wrestling business was from Bruiser Brody kicking his ass all over the ring. So, other like quick little thing before I start talking about his WCW career. So he was also a champion where he defeated Jerry Lawler for the United States Championship for Continental Wrestling Association.
Sure, what happened there?
Where his character would be called the Pain and Punisher. So yeah, little trivia there for the Undertaker, Mark Calloway. And it's just crazy to think that somebody like
okay.
Yeah, you're good now, I think.
Yeah.
So could you guys imagine?
I'm not sure.
He sounds still a little.
Yeah, you're
off.
still sounding a little off. So we do apologize.
Okay, now?
A little bit better.
Let me get out and come back.
No worries.
All right, yeah, you're fine.
No worries.
Yeah.
All right, but could you guys imagine having Bruiser Brody in his prime against Undertaker in his prime as well?
No,
Could you imagine that crazy of a fight?
that would be
like,
interesting to see.
My mind would be blown.
I mean, that was
Taker.
that's just like also Bruiser Brody doing both that and then balancing over to his international stuff, and then Mark Calloway just coming up as a fresh new face in professional wrestling. So I could never imagine that would be the first pairing.
Yeah. All right, let's see, Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, are you coming in all right?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh yeah, no, that's much clearer.
You mentioned Percy Pringle. Is that Percy Pringle?
Percy Pringle, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Paul Bearer.
What does Santa call his name?
Chris Kringle.
Chris Kringle. Yeah.
Chris Pringle, meet Percy Pringle.
Right.
I've always heard really good stories about Paul Bearer. Like he's one of the nicest people you can ever meet.
I wish I could have met him. I really did.
Yeah, just from the story that I hear about him, like he's like one of the nicest people you could ever meet. So
yeah, it's kind of if you look at too, like he was like a legit pallbearer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He legit worked in the funeral service. So.
He was a mortician, yeah.
Yeah. So and then Mark would make his way to WCW as Mean Mark. And he would team with Dan Snivy? Is that you say his name? Dan Snivy as the Skyscrapers.
Skyscraper.
Mm-hmm. He would also be managed by Paul E. Dangerous too during that time frame.
That's true.
They are known as Paul Heyman. So, just it's crazy to see like how both their careers kind of separated and went after WCW. It's crazy. Those two are bigger than WCW ever could have been.
Yeah,
that's true. I haven't thought about that, but that is kind of a good thing you can say about it.
Did you guys do you guys remember any matches that he had in WCW?
I really can't remember any of the matches he had because at that time I would just watch, kind of sporadically. I wasn't hooked on it yet, but I would catch it every now and then. And this is before I would get into it. I wouldn't really get into it until he was the Undertaker in WWF. Then I was like, okay, I get it. I get it now. This I'm gonna watch this forever now.
There was one match I remember. Can't remember which year it was, but it was Mean Mark versus Lex Luger I can't remember which year, but was that a Great American Bash? I believe one of them.
I want to say yes.
I remember seeing that because I used to have a VHS, and it was The Undertaker, and I remember against Lex Luger. It may have been for a title, I don't know, but I know it took place at Great American Bash, whatever year it was. But he actually wrestled in ECW, surprisingly. He wasn't like the Undertaker is a person that you wouldn't think would wrestle anywhere else besides WWE. Like imagine Undertaker in AEW, like that would be out of the ordinary.
Right.
Just like breaking the fourth wall.
Breaking the fourth wall. But looking at it too, he didn't get treated the best because during that time frame, good old Ole Anderson would tell him that there's no place for him. No one would ever pay to see Mark Calloway. He would never make money. He would never be a draw.
How wrong was he?
It wasn't even that. He was also in the mix of WCW that still had all these old time big names in there, and he was just lost in the mix. That he wasn't going to really go anywhere in WCW.
Imagine if they did, even if they did keep him, I don't think he would have had that really good run in WWE. I don't think he would have had it because WWE did stuff in that time period. They did stuff a little bit different than WCW, representing a character like that, like the Undertaker. Yeah. Like WCW, I don't think they would have been able to pull that off.
No, especially with trying to remember who the guy who was running WCW at the time, like the president.
Who was it?
I couldn't remember who it was.
Billy Corgan?
The pizza guy?
No, the pizza guy. Yeah, maybe the pizza guy. Here we go. Let me figure this out. I have to do my research. But you guys keep talking while I'm doing my research.
No, you're good.
Chris Kringle.
But you know what's crazy too is so while he waited for his contract in WCW to end, do you know what famous movie he was in with a certain larger than life superstar?
Oh, Urban Commando.
Urban Commando, that is correct.
Yeah, I remember that.
He had a small role in Urban Commando. And that is where Vince McMahon got word from Hulk Hogan that this kid, this giant, was going to be a star. So that's how The Undertaker got his name mentioned in WWE, was because of the Hulkster.
I think he overexceeded us super.
Bill Watts. Bill Watts,
yes.
Cowboy
Bill Watts. Bill Watts wanted certain different from WWF at the time. WWF was all gimmick stuff and like family stuff. WCW was more like wrestling and tough stuff. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Mark would get the call. He was so worried that he was going to come out of the giant egg during Survivor Series because that was the time when, they had two debuts the night of Survivor Series in 1990 as we had The Undertaker and the Gobbledygook. So Mark had been watching TV. He's like, oh, shit. I'm going to be coming out of the egg, ain't I?
Oh, God.
So that would bring us to one of the best Survivor Series tag matches. So in 1990, he would make his WWF debut, being led to the ring by Brother Love. So crazy, have you guys gone back and watched that match?
Was it Ted DiBiase that announced him?
Yep.
Yes, Ted DiBiase says mystery partner. And the funny thing is, it was The Undertaker, but originally, he was supposed to be called Kane the Undertaker.
Kane the Undertaker. Didn't he have a few dark matches with Kane?
He did. He had a few back when Kane was. Actually, they had a few matches back in the day for. I want to say like Smoky Mountain. It was an independent back when Kane had like the Unabomber, whatever, gimmick going on with the whole red football stuff and the hockey mask.
So Kane was supposed to be the Undertaker, or
no? It was supposed to be called Kane the Undertaker.
Taker had Kane's name.
Yeah. So what happened was Bruce Pritchard came up with the idea of calling him Kane the Undertaker because he had this character idea that was based on Cain and Abel.
Yeah.
And if people don't know about Cain and Abel were brothers that pretty much try to outshine each other and try to outdo each other. I think it was in the Bible. I can't remember, but
Cain killed Abel.
With a rock.
yes, Cain killed Abel with a rock. Yes, but
Yeah.
it was just brothers. So there's this idea, but they called him Cain the Undertaker. But then he dropped the Cain and he just went by the Undertaker.
Which is crazy to think what's going to happen later. Having your brother come back for revenge after being
Cain's
almost
alive. Your brother
And at that
Cain
time-
is alive.
He came back.
And at
around.
that time, Glenn Jacobs, the guy who plays Cain, was playing that dentist, the
Dr. Isaac Yankum.
Yankum's DDS.
He had some screwed up teeth back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, those are disgusting. If you guys for those guys in the comment section after the podcast, because we don't want to ruin the whole show for you.
No.
But go look up pictures of Dr. Isaac Yankum. Because, oh gosh, he had the worst teeth. I have bad teeth, but man, he had the worst.
And like
They're a little better today.
Yeah, he had a lot of work.
I
Well,
went
he
to,
were fake teeth.
I went to meet Kane one time and someone had that figure of that character, and they did it worse than the figure, I think, in real life.
Which side note, do you guys know what Cain does today?
He's a mayor.
Mayor
Yeah.
of Knox County, Tennessee.
Yep.
Very political. A lot of people kind of lost respect for him because of his political views, but everybody's got to have different views. But
Well, that's Glenn Jacobs, though. That
Yeah, that's
still be
Glenn
fans
Jacobs.
of King.
That's
Yeah,
not
that's not King.
Cain's
It's like
different.
it's
Whole
corporate
nother
King.
matter.
It's corporate King.
Corporate Cain. Political
Gosh.
Cain.
Political King. Yes, there you go. Political King. Because didn't he choke slam somebody through like a table at one of the his mayor fundraisers?
John Cena.
yeah, he did.
Yeah, you couldn't see him do it.
Which
Right.
You couldn't see John that time. He was chokeslamming an invisible person.
he was there, but just couldn't see him. Yeah, he was there.
You just couldn't see him.
Yes.
You just couldn't see him.
Let me ask you guys this: do you remember who he eliminated during the Survivor Series tag match?
The Undertaker.
Yeah, you know who he eliminated?
I'm gonna take
Hard
a
times, baby. Hard times.
Dusty
That was
Rhodes.
that was his premiere
Dusty Rhodes gave him the rub.
or his debut. Yeah.
Yep. And on his debut in WWF, he eliminated the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes.
I do remember that, and they took off fighting in the back.
Yep. So crazy, what a crazy start for Undertaker, and then he was just off to the races from there. Think about it. He had, Brother Love for a little bit, and then of course he dropped Brother Love and brought in Paul Bear, controlled by that magical urn. It's crazy to think that this immortal being is controlled by an urn. Did they ever say what was in the urn? Did they ever tell that part of the lore?
Well,
The,
CM
mother,
Punk
the ashes of his mother, I believe.
yeah, CM Punk technically took it in their feud. He took all the ashes out, and I hope it wasn't real ashes.
No, I guarantee you it wasn't real.
No, it wasn't.
I'd be sick if it was.
Mm-hmm. All right, let me ask you guys the next part of trivia. Okay, who was Undertaker's first WrestleMania opponent?
Jimmy Snuka.
Yep, Superfly, Jimmy Snuka. Okay, awesome.
That was
another huge legend.
He tombstoned him on the outside, rolled him in, and pinned him. And that's when Jimmy Snuka did the whole shaking thing after getting tombstoned on the outside. So
crazy, isn't it? That's a huge name back in the day to win over.
Jimmy Snuka is a wrestler that it's like those larger than life characters. Well, for me it is at least. For watching wrestling almost my entire life, Jimmy Snuka is the name that when you hear Jimmy Snuka, at least for me, seeing him dive off a cage. He's the first person.
Yep, I was about to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was about to say he was the first person in WWF history to dive off the cage. I would love to have been there for that. And we'll get to the next big dive off of structure later.
Oh yeah.
The most famous moment of two specific wrestler careers. So let me ask you guys this: who did the Undertaker beat at that year Survivor Series to win his first World Heavyweight Championship?
I'm gonna say Hulk Hogan.
Yep, brother, you got it right, brother. Yep. So he beat Hogan, and then from there he was just an unstoppable force. Going against likes of like Giant Gonzalez. He would. You also got to think about it too. He like the list of like his WrestleMania opponents is crazy, right? So I'm looking at it, right? So he beat Jimmy Snuka. That was his first one, right? And then Jake the Snake Roberts, to Giant Gonzalez, and then to King Kong Bundy. That first 4-year time frame. What a
King Kong
what
Bundy.
a crazy year.
There's some big names, really big names.
Yeah. So, who was the one that defeated Undertaker for the World Championship?
Oh wow.
Bret
Hart.
Banzai.
I wanted to say, it was Yokozuna.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh wow.
And Suna, where he
I was gonna say Bret Hart too.
Well, because him and Yokozuna had a series of matches back then, and they actually had that first casket match.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
How did they fit Yokozuna in a cat? Well, no reason.
They made it. It was especially made for him.
They literally so they had a series of matches, and like it wasn't just Yokozuna. Like everybody else came out to like help like seal the casket up and like hammer it.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember it because it was they showed him on the screen, the Undertaker, and he like turned his head and he's like, "You can't bear it." No, it was
that was Raw.
It was the Royal Rumble. It was '94. Royal Rumble.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, Raw is where Undertaker debuted the concept of the casket match for WWF, and he's Yokozuna, I'm going to put you in this, and then at Royal Rumble, the casket match happened, and like all these other guys came out and helped Yokozuna, like put him in there and like help him seal it up.
So what if Undertaker would have won? How would they have done that?
Magic.
Yeah, it's very hard to put a Samoan in a casket.
Yeah.
Well,
I do remember that all the heels came out and helped get the Undertaker into all in there and just make sure he stayed in there. And they all pushed him down there. It was pretty cool, though. I mean, honestly, as a kid watching it, seeing all the bad guys take out one guy, he was like, "Wait a second here, somebody come help him." It was great entertainment. I can't lie.
I think the end part is when he did the video screen where he says, "You can't, bury me," and all that. And then, like, they did like the flash, and then they had like an Undertaker standing, like, get floated up.
Yeah.
From the screen. Like, it was the coolest effect I've ever seen, but it was the Titantron screen before it was like the big Titantron.
Yeah,
and it was like Undertaker's body in the coffin, and it was being pulled up, and then the person was being pulled up by wires through the screen in real life. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen as a kid.
On TV, it looked awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. So fortunately at that time, Undertaker would then lose. After losing that championship, he would actually miss WrestleMania that year to recover from injuries, and then he would come back and had probably the worst of his start of his Undertaker career, where he would go up against the fake Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
One was purple, one was gray.
Yeah, one was gray.
So who was the fake Undertaker? Do you remember who it was?
That was what's his name? He was
Mean Mark.
Brian Primetime Brian Lee, I think I want to say.
Was it Brian Lee?
I could be off.
Now there was always a rumor I heard in my life, but was there two people who played the Undertaker, the character? Like
there was a fake Undertaker.
There was a fake Undertaker.
So like Mean Mark, like the Undertaker we know today was the Undertaker the whole way through. Because some people actually had me believing that there was a second person who played the character, and then they dropped it, and then Mean Mark came in and took the character. I always wondered that.
It was Brian Lee.
Yeah,
that's who it was.
Who would go on to be Chains?
Chains.
Snake.
Who? Chains? Who's Chains?
Chains from old tag team. God, I can't remember the name. Hold on.
It kind of reminds me of Snakes.
Yeah.
Disciples of the Apocalypse.
Snakes.
The
Don't ring a bell.
Let's see.
No, that's not him.
Snakes is in New York
Went
City.
on, became Chains, and he teamed with. Let me see.
Do you guys know who Snakes is from?
Snakes. Jake the Snake.
Oh, you said the line exactly like from the movie.
He went on to team with Crush to be the disciples of Apocalypse.
Disciples of
DOA.
Apocalypse.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Okay. I'm pretty sure.
All right.
But yeah, that's Brian Lee.
Is there like any other big moments like the start of his career that you guys can remember before we start talking about his like next big, like, basically his actual biggest opponent to date besides Shawn Michaels?
No, as a kid, I had a lot of VHS. I mean, The Undertaker was my favorite wrestler. There's this one VHS with, I believe, Mankind and The Undertaker, and Mick Foley lit Undertaker's face on fire with a fireball. I actually thought it was real at the time because I'm like 8, 7 years old, and like these old VHS, his face burns, and then the next week he wears this thing over his.
Are you saying he's a wizard?
I don't know. He might be. But I believe it was In Your House. One of those shows where
it was In Your House, yeah. I remember that.
There was a lot of In Your Houses back then, wasn't
Yeah.
there? Was it every other pay-per-view that wasn't Mania, Rumble, and Survivor Series all In Your House?
For the most part.
It was
basically all In Your House because you had your big ones or your big four. You had Rumble, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, and Survivor Series.
Mm-hmm.
So In Your House was basically their weekly show.
Yeah, basically their weekly. I mean, you can look at it like that. Yeah.
What if
and like I think to me, I mean, like I'm trying to think, like, because he had the Phantom on the Opera kind of thing going for a little bit, and I think that was whenever King Mabel injured him, and I think he had broke his orbital bone.
Oh gosh!
And yeah, it was rough. And
I remember that drop. Yeah. Oh my god! Oh.
That's when he came out with that whole Phantom of the Opera thing, which was actually a really cool look for him. I thought it was cool.
That's gotta hurt though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that I don't even know what bone that was, but just by the name of it probably hurt.
So looking at so WrestleMania 11, he faced off against King Kong Bundy, and then at WrestleMania 12, he would defeat Diesel.
I remember that match.
And after that match, the next night on Monday Night Raw would start one of the biggest rivalries of his career. Making his Monday night debut, Mama Foley's baby boy.
Bye-bye.
Not Cactus Jack. Mankind. Where he would attack Undertaker and put the mandible claw. That's got to be the most disgusting and most painful move somebody probably could take as a submission hold.
Not comfortable.
It's kind of like the log that Britt Baker does, but the way that they did, like their whole hands going in someone's mouth.
Yeah.
Well, at least Britt Baker wears a glove.
At least, yeah.
Right.
Well, I know Mankind had that like thing on his hand, but
he never washed it. It's just he just stuck it in your mouth, and he never really cleaned it.
Yeah, that wouldn't be me.
One thing I do remember about the vignettes. I'll go ahead.
No, you're good.
One thing I do remember about the vignettes whenever Mankind was about to make his debut was that he would be like in this dungeon like kind of place with a rat, and like he would be talking to the rat. And I found out years later that the rat was actually Jim Cornette's rat. He had a pet rat. It was
Wait, Jim Cornette had a rat?
Yeah, he had a pet rat, and that was his rat that Mick Foley was using in those vignettes.
I know what you're talking about now because he didn't want anything to do with a rat. He didn't want anything to do with it, but
no.
but he knew if he did it, he was opening up the opportunity, so you had to seize the opportunity you get. So yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know it was Jim Cornette's rat though. That explains a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Cornette, he would.
I like Jim. I like some things he says.
I'm starting to come around to Jim Cornette. Slowly. I'm slowly coming
slowly.
around to Jim Cornette.
I don't
I
agree
can
with
understand that.
everything he says, but there's some things that it's basically, like I said, Lego pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the
I
hard
think
part. With,
I,
yeah, with
I think if it came down to
Cornette.
wrestling, I'd listen to what he had to say. You know.
Yeah, he does have some valid points sometimes, but sometimes I don't agree with some things he says. But I mean, you can actually learn something. I wouldn't say learn. Well, yeah, you could learn something because of the amount of history he has in the wrestling business.
Yep.
Anyways,
So, do you know that Undertaker almost won the Intercontinental Championship?
wow, I didn't know he didn't win it.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
well, his first chance at it, at least.
Yeah.
So, Mankind would come out and attack the Undertaker during his match with Gold
Gold.
Dust. So, at In Your House 8, Beware the Dog. Great name. Great name. The two would face off in another casket match. I think the Undertaker likes casket matches. What do you think?
I think he does. His record's not solid in them, but he likes them.
Yep.
Yep.
So basically, Undertaker would get so close, but Mankind would emerge from the casket, but at the end again, upon a mandible claw, and would help Goldust retain the Intercontinental Championship. So that would set up their first match at King of the Ring. So 1996 King of the Ring, the two would finally face off, okay, in a singles match. Kind of one of the more overlooked matches, because if you think about it, they had the Boiler Room Brawl, and of course, then the big one we're getting ready to talk about coming up here shortly. And there was this match. And going back and watch clips of it, it was a hard-hitting match. You know, if you look at it, The Undertaker really didn't get a whole lot over on Mankind back in the day.
And that's what I thought watching. I mean, I felt like they were making Mankind into this huge threat for the Undertaker, like this huge threat. And as far as for me, I was sold on it. I was like, hell yeah, because I figured like it's gonna come down to a huge match, like bigger than what anybody's seen before. And like you said, we'll get to that.
Of course. Adam, what did you think about this time frame with The Undertaker? Did you like the story and the direction that they were going with
I thoroughly enjoyed the Undertaker Mankind feud, especially when Paul Bearer switched sides and joined Mankind.
Mhm.
As a kid who's a fan of the Undertaker, and you saw that, you're like, how could Paul Bearer do that? And Mankind, like, just the way those matches were, just they were very brutal. They were very like hard hitting, pounding. I mean, those are the times you see Undertaker throw Mankind over the top rope and his head gets caught in the rope, and that's when you're seeing him like trying. And I don't know if it was King of the Ring is when Mick Foley lost half his ear in that match. It was one of those matches against Undertaker that he lost half his ear.
Yeah.
And so, but watching it as a kid, I think one of the feuds I enjoyed in early WWF was that feud, because of all their crazy matches. The Boiler Room match was one of my favorite like gimmick matches I've ever seen as a kid, because I'm like, holy crap, like they're fighting in a real boiler room. They're getting thrown through tables. They're falling on trash cans, through glass. Like, I'm like, holy crap, this is like dangerous. One of these guys is going to hurt themselves. But at the same time, I'm like, it's awesome,
Yeah.
So I thoroughly enjoyed Undertaker's feud with Mankind.
Yeah, and looking at it too, there was a lot of mind games played, especially leading up to their Buried Alive match. So that would bring us to the match with Mankind and Shawn Michaels at In Your House 10, Mind Games. So if you think about it, The Undertaker started playing games back. You play games, you win stupid prizes. for sure. And then, of course, that led up to their second biggest match besides Hell in a Cell. You had the first ever Buried Alive match at In Your House 11, nicknamed even Buried Alive.
Yeah.
Like, what did you guys think about this match? Like, watching it back, like, did you guys like, was it crazy to see somebody actually get buried alive?
Like, this is the one where Undertaker had the match won, but someone, who was it? Who helped Mankind win that match? It was someone, right?
I think it was
Actually,
No, this
actually,
match,
actually this match is the only Buried Alive match Undertaker has ever won.
Yep,
Oh, he won that.
Undertaker won the first one.
He
Well,
was
not the last
burying him, and then who was the character? It was like the guy dressed up like a hangman,
the Executioner.
the executioner. Thank
Yes.
you. So he came out and started helping, and like all these other people came out and started helping Mankind bury the Undertaker, and they went so far up. But
Yeah.
like the way that they worked, that he wasn't really buried alive.
No,
The fact that his hand coming through, like the purple glove, was like just an image you would never forget.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Now, the one he won. So they'll make each other in two Buried Alive matches, and it was 1-1, right? They both won one each.
I believe so. Mike, is that correct, Adam?
Because I watched.
I believe so. Undertaker's been in 2 or 3 of them. That was the only one he's won, because he lost. I know I'm jumping ahead, but he lost the one at the 2003 Survivor Series against McMahon.
Yeah.
And I thought he had one more match,
lost
one more
against
Buried
Randy Orton.
Alive match.
I know Randy Orton he lost against.
Well, I think that one was a casket match.
I remember Kane won. I remember Kane kind of messing it up, and then that's how Taker lost.
Oh yeah, Kane and Undertaker,
Kane
2010.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Oh,
I'm
there
looking
it is,
at it
yeah.
right now. I have the list of his Buried Alive opponents. He had 5 of them. So first one, he defeated Mankind, which was the only one he won. That happened in 1996, and then in 1998, Stone Cold would defeat the Undertaker, and then the Undertaker and Big Show. Oh, so okay, so it looks like they so it looks like there was one more match that he had won. That wasn't a singles match though. So his third Buried Alive match, 1999, the Undertaker and Big Show defeated Rock and Sock Connection. Forgot about that one. And then, of course, Vince McMahon with Kane defeated Undertaker in 2003. And then Undertaker's last Buried Alive match, because we're not going to count the one he did with AJ Styles, because I don't think it counts as a Buried Alive match, was Kane. Kane defeated Undertaker in 2010.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, pretty interesting. He only won one Buried Alive match, a match that he helped create.
One singles one, because I don't know how you can count the tag team. That one's weird to me. That one's kind of completely out of my head, that match, because I guess it was a tag match. So it's like I didn't really remember it, but I do remember all his other Buried Alive matches.
Yeah. So kind of fast.
And I agree with you. I don't really consider the Boneyard match a Buried Alive match.
I know the Austin and Undertaker. The only reason I know, well, I watched the match, but after I seen it on the game, but it was a story mode in the game that it was Stone Cold Undertaker, and it was the Buried Alive match. And then later I watched the match.
So after everything happens in 1998, we get the infamous Hell in a Cell at King of the Ring, where Undertaker threw off Mankind off the top of the cell.
That was something. Just if anyone's ever watched any documentaries or interviews or anything, like they really detailed how catastrophic that was.
Yeah.
Because
I think I'm. Go ahead.
I remember the Undertaker talking about when they were on the on top of the cage. You know, when he threw him off, like he never got off, and then they raised the whole Hell in a Cell, and then he was still on it. And he was like 80, like he was all the way up there. So it's not like I can get. It's like no, that no one's telling me anything. I got no communication with anyone, so I'm just up
Right, he just
here.
stood there.
But like
That
what he should have done was go like this, like he does to cover the lights, and have the cage go up with him while he does that. Because you know what? Because you know when he like raises the lights with this,
Yeah.
he should have done
That's
that
good
with
thinking,
the
though.
cage. Uh, but yeah, what were you gonna say, Mr. Jacobs?
I was gonna say, like, I think watching as a fan at that time, and like I've, never seen anything like this before. Never seen, dude just be hurled off of a cage like this, and I'm thinking to myself, how the hell is he gonna get up, finish this match? And like, when they came out with the stretcher and everything, I'm thinking to myself, all right, he's done. This
My
is
God.
over. I'm not sure.
My God.
I'm not sure why why, by God, why is this
My
still
God. He
going
killed
on?
him. My
And
God.
It was nuts. And then when he came back, walks up the cage again. I'm thinking, oh my God, are you serious? What is this dude doing?
like
And then
that,
like it was nuts. The whole thing was nuts, and like
and then
I've never seen anything like it.
he gets slammed
well,
through the cage. Well, now this is the part I was just gonna get to. The Undertaker said when he choke slammed him through that cage and the door, like he said that if he would have stepped his foot on the same cage that he threw him with, that the whole thing. I know I'm not saying it exactly like the Undertaker said. That's why I definitely recommend watching. I can't remember which documentary it was, but the Undertaker explained it that if he would have landed a certain way with his foot, the way mankind did, that the whole entire cage was going to collapse and both of them were going to go down.
Yeah,
Like,
uh, I was gonna say for that match, first of all, let's acknowledge the fact that the year before at WrestleMania 13, he beat Psycho Sid for his second
Yeah.
WWF Championship, so that was awesome.
true.
But this match, holy hell, I completely almost forgot about the rest of that pay per view because of this match. Um, because of the King of the, and there was other good matches on that card. Um, um, that card also included. I gotta look up the card, but it had really good. Um,
people thought it was over by the time that like, it was just beginning when he got thrown off the still.
I mean, you look at some of these. You had the two semifinals for the King of the Ring. You had Ken Shamrock against our favorite boy Jeff Jarrett. You had The Rock versus Dan Severn. You had Too Much before they were too cool against Al Snow and Head. X Pac. You had
Yeah,
X Pac versus Owen Hart. You had the New Age Outlaws against the Midnight Express. You had Ken Shamrock win King of the Ring that year. And
Jeez.
then you had, the main
man.
event was Kane beating Stone Cold for the title in a first blood match. Um, so
overshadowed.
so even yeah, so even that, like, everybody forgot the rest of that pay per view because of this match alone. And I just remember watching it, going, "Oh my god!" And I remember watching a little bit. I think of the same documentary that Connor is talking about, but I
Yeah,
mean, I think it was Mick's idea, looking at Taker on the top, going, "Dude, throw me." Like, we're gonna about to have a moment,
Yeah,
throw me. And then he
yeah,
threw him. And then I remember Undertaker saying something like, I was looking down going, Mick, please just move. Like, move, because he wasn't moving. He's
yeah,
like, just move, because he was scared, like, out of his wits, that he might have just seriously injured or killed Mick Foley. And then he started moving, and Taker was just watching, and obviously you saw, Terry Funk come out and all these guys come out and everything like that. And honestly, I thought that was the end of it. I honestly thought
yeah.
at that time, at my age, I'm like, that's it. Like, the match is done. Like, he can't continue. He just fell from a big ass cage. But then no, here comes Psycho Mick Foley back down the ramp again, like, just telling people to screw off. and he's climbing, and then all I can hear is JR going, Undertaker's climbing back up too. They're going back up, and they're just going at it. And again, that spot with the choke slam,
Yeah,
and seeing Mick Foley go through and hit the mat underneath. And that impact, actually, if nobody remembers, is the one that knocked his tooth out.
Is that where
Yeah.
Pinnacle
And it
shaved
went
his
right
nose?
through, and it went right into his nose. But Mick has always said that if it wasn't for the extra padding on his butt, he probably would have broken his tailbone.
I
He had
remember
extra,
that
he had
I'm
extra
surprised he
padding.
didn't.
Yeah, he actually had extra padding around
because
his pants and hip area. If he didn't, he would have broke his hip or
I,
his tailbone too.
I remember something he was talking about that when he threw him on like the door that like it didn't break, like the how do I say it? He choke slammed him in like the cage
The
door, I
fencing.
guess. It,
Yeah.
like he like anyone watching, you have to go hear what the Undertaker and McFoley say about it because I know I'm not saying it right, but if he would have, I can't say no more. I don't know how to explain it, but it would have been really really bad if what Adam said it and then he that door, like he probably could have never wrestled again.
And then
I'm
the
surprised he
psychopath had to
didn't.
bring out, and then the psychopath had to bring out tax too in that match. Like it's
Oh
Mick
my
Foley
God.
just going nuts, and just oh my god, and just the image of Undertaker. I feel like there was a bigger mutual respect in that moment when Mick was sitting in the ring smiling as the Undertaker was walking up the ramp and then looked back. Like
Yeah.
I felt like their friendship and like the respect grew like 100% stronger that day.
Yes. It's crazy.
I
Like
believe it.
looking back, is not many. There's a lot of Hell in a Cell matches, but you'll never have such an iconic moment. Besides maybe the first Hell in a Cell, that's like the most talked about moment, probably long past Mick Foley and Undertaker are long gone. That was a little morbid, but that was coming from Mick Foley himself.
Yeah.
Looking back on all the times he's talked about the documentary, there was a story that he was saying that when Mick, that Monday after the pay-per-view, Mick had to show his kids the match because kids at school kept talking about it, and he remembers like he had to explain, he had to go a little more detail about the business during that time frame as well.
Yeah.
So really crazy moment for both Mick and the Undertaker, because when you talk about both guys' careers, that's one of the first things that comes to mind is that Hell in a Cell match. And think about it, it's on every WWE intro now. Every time there's a new intro for the Then Now Forever, it's that's really one of the first things that you see is Mankind getting thrown off Hell in a Cell.
You can't. There's no way anyone can top that. Because I remember Shane McMahon did something like that, but at WrestleMania, but it still wasn't.
No, he had padding and actually had.
It wasn't
crash pad.
It wasn't. It didn't feel the same, even though the Undertaker was in it. It didn't feel the same. I'd have liked to have been there front row to see that.
Yeah, that would be, if I could go back and relive one moment in wrestling, that would be one of them for sure.
Like sit there front row, like right where it happened. That would have been.
I actually came across a rare photo on a Facebook page of someone posted a different view, like with a camera of that shot of Mick getting thrown off.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah, I wish I remembered which Facebook page it was on, but I saw it because someone posted. Someone said different angle of when Mick Foley was tossed in 1998 at Hell in a Cell at King of the Ring, and it was a crazy angle.
And people say
it's
wrestling's
like
fake.
20 feet down.
Yeah,
People say wrestling's fake. I would dare not ever do that. Ain't no way. Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
Pay me enough.
especially at my age now. Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that.
Like the size of Mick Foley, a guy like that's not supposed to be doing that. Like his size is there's no way. You would think he would have died doing that, but
he should have died. Like
He should have.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like not trying to be mean. Love you, Mick, if you're listening, but
Yeah, there's no way, like his size.
no way he like
I mean,
just
the average man couldn't go through all that.
No,
no way. Glad he had padding for sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
Not trying to break kayfabe, but
Good thing he has a. Well, never mind.
he's got a thicker frame than most.
High threshold for pain.
I don't think that's what Connor was going, but I get it.
Well,
I get it.
Just the never mind.
Or no good.
The peaches,
Yeah, that's what I said. Thicker frame. Peach.
The peaches.
But looking at Mick Foley does have a high threshold for pain.
Yeah.
But it's cost him. Like thanks to DDP, man. He's saved. DDP's really helped him out so much.
Yeah, Mick Foley, Edge and Mick Foley went to that flaming table. That's probably one of my favorite WrestleManias ever. Then, like that match was probably one of the reasons. Mick Foley over the years, tax, barbed wire. He even did an exploiting barbed wire death match before one time
in Japan, right, with Terry Funk.
Yep.
God love the Funkster, So one thing that before we start talking about Kane and Shawn Michaels, because we'll say those two for last, the Undertaker had some crazy reinventions over the years. So, and one of my favorite lines I think we said on the show, "It was me all along, Austin." I'm, of course, talking about the higher power, the Ministry of Darkness gimmick, where he strapped Stephanie McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin to crosses. Mm-hmm. Talk about being edgy.
I mean, they were pushing the envelope with that one. I mean,
yeah, on the cross, yeah.
Okay, how did they get away with it, right? But ECW couldn't. Like, they had to literally apologize for that.
Like, with the Sandman, Raven.
Well, I guess see, it's weird because what happened with the cross in ECW happened early on in its conception. And it was Raven's idea. So literally, like, if anybody knows anything about ECW, a lot of the wrestlers, kind of like with AEW, but a little more open with their ideas. Whereas AEW, they're open to ideas, but they work it in a certain degree where they don't 100% have free range of everything. They still follow some kind of script or some kind of story to it. With that in ECW, Raven kind of went off on it. And it was crazy because Kurt Angle was at that show. And Kurt Angle was thinking about signing with ECW. And Kurt Angle's a very religious man. He's very Christian. So they did that. And even Stevie Richards and Blue Meanie, because Blue Meanie is Christian as well. Like, if you watch the ECW, Rise and Fall of ECW documentary, even Stevie tells a story. He says, Blue Meanie looked at me and goes, "Dude, Stevie, this is effed up, man. This is crazy, like, that we're doing this." And Raven actually came out and had to apologize. And he actually used his real name in the promo. When he said, "You gave so-and-so," I keep forgetting his real name, but he said, "You gave so-and-so the respect of his privacy. So I respect, your religious beliefs, and I apologize." So, but most of what WWF kind of took was ideas from ECW. And that is kind of what they took from that. Was they took the cross idea, but they redesigned it. I think because of the way they redesigned the cross look, they could get away with it because it didn't look like a regular Christian cross.
Yeah, so that's probably how they got away with that. Basically, it wasn't because it was the Undertaker symbol, correct? They kind of made.
Yes. Yeah.
We're gonna have to
higher power.
We're gonna have to while talking story time with Adam, because the way you go into details of the stories is really, really good.
Yeah. Well, that's because I know we've discussed it, and I mean Adam have discussed it before, but I just can't remember what the exact situation was in that. But but I guess I think if they tweaked it a little bit to where they were able to, I could see why. So yeah, I don't know. It's just interesting to see, the daughter of the company be crucified in the middle of thousands of people. Looking
Yeah,
at
because I remember they
where,
kidnapped her first. Yeah,
At a
I remember
wrestling
that.
show.
but I feel like that had one of the worst payoffs. Was there any rumors that it was supposed to be somebody outside Vince McMahon, or was it always going to be Vince?
Oh, Christopher Daniels.
There,
That's who
yeah,
was.
Christopher Daniels was
Yeah,
one
Daniels.
name.
Yeah,
He
it
was
was one rumor
Jake the
name.
Snake was talked about.
Yep.
Wow, that'd have been.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Which is crazy considering the history Jake the Snake has both with Steve Austin and the Undertaker.
Right.
I honestly thought that would have been a great twist because Jake the Snake had stories with both Austin and Undertaker while he was with WWF. It would have been awesome.
It felt like it would
made
be
more
definitely give
sense.
we get more layers instead of just a way to get back at Steve Austin. Because I felt like it had a lot of momentum going. It was dark. It was edgy. You had the Brood. I'm not sure who else was on there. It was the Brood and who else? Because there was a few
Acolytes. You had the Acolytes in there. You
Yep.
had Midian.
Big Boss
You had Viscera, Big Boss Man.
The Sandman.
Because after that happened, after Vince it was the corporate ministry. So you had all those guys. You had Ken Shamrock, Big Boss Man. You had you had all those guys. That was part of the corporation, kind of merged with the ministry.
As Stone Cold, well,
what about Stone Cold?
nothing.
Because I know the ministry. I know the ministry fell apart. Right at let's see, what was the?
I think it was '99 is when they started falling apart.
Wasn't it fully loaded where Undertaker and Stone Cold would face off, and then that would be like the last time you would see the ministry?
Yeah, well, it also kind of fell apart because then you had the Job Squad group kind of come in and feud with the corporate ministry, which was great. I loved the corporate ministry because you had Al Snow, you had who else was in the Job Squad? You had Crash Holly.
Too Cool Scorpio, I think, was in it.
Yes, Too Cold Scorpio might have been in it. Big Show might have been in it.
Jeez, man, that's crazy to think of how many people ended up being in that. Isn't that where Shane McMahon had his testicles fried by Kane, or was that after?
Oh, that was Ruthless Aggression.
Okay,
so Job Squad, you had Al Snow, Blue Meanie, Bob Holly, Gilbert, and Scorpio.
Gilbert
was the Job Squad.
I forgot about Gilbert.
I mean, essentially AEW could do the same. They got Brandon. Well, Brandon Cutler's better than what he is right now, but you got Brandon Cutler, Michael Nakazawa, Fuego if he would come back.
Fuego, yes.
Which is crazy because, like you said, Lane, like that Fully Loaded started falling apart because it was at '99 that Undertaker had his match at WrestleMania with Big Boss Man, who at the time was still part of the corporate ministry, but because they had their inner fighting, that him and Taker got heated, and that's when Undertaker's like, "All right, WrestleMania," and I think that was their Hell in a Cell match where the Brood came down with the fake news.
Was that against Big Boss Man?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, somebody hung up.
The fake news.
I think that was the very first Hell in a Cell match at WrestleMania. Was 1999 against Big Boss Man.
Yeah, I think you're right.
You think about that visual, dude.
Yeah.
Think about the visual at the end of the match, and it was just everybody just looking at Boss Man hanging. That was like the craziest visual.
That's the best way to hit a match. Jeez, man! Like what a time! Like that was like what his probably most edgy time.
Oh yeah,
like, he was like edgy. He was edgy Taker. He was edgy.
Yeah, edgy Taker. Yeah.
But, and then of course, before I start talking about Kane and going in depth on the Brothers of Destruction, you can't forget about the American Badass, Biker Taker.
That was my favorite version of Undertaker.
Yep.
I
I
like
like
that. I
the
thought it was cool.
he had two, like when they brought him back as the motorcycle American Badass. They did not bring back the actual theme song he used. He used "Rollin'" from
I
Limbo.
love Rolling by Limp
They
Bizkit.
used something off the wall that he never used. What was that? Raw 30 was it
Mm-hmm.
the anniversary show? I tuned in to see that, and that was so disrespectful.
Well, it's probably
Hmm.
because they couldn't get the rights to the music again.
Oh, they can get arrested to anything.
Well,
no,
he actually came out. He actually came out to two different themes. He came out
Yeah.
to "Rollin'" and then he came out to "American Badass" by Kid Rock.
wasn't
Yeah.
that the
Right.
one that had the Deadman walking before?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
and this is a funny thing because I love music, but if anybody knows this, Kid Rock's "American Badass" song is actually a riff off of "Sad but True" by Metallica.
Really?
So if you
Hmm.
listen to "Sad but True" and the beginning of it with the do 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 do, that's it's sad but true.
Oh,
But Kid Rock did his "American Badass" with the sample of that.
Hmm.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
huh.
See, that's why we
Learn
gotta
something new every day.
That's why we have Adam. You know,
storytelling.
That's why you got me with my useless knowledge. But yeah, no, I'm with Connor. I loved "American Badass" Undertaker. Loved it. Especially when he joined the Americans to bat like Christian and Test and all them when they feuded with them. Like
Oh yeah.
I loved it. Um it was one of my favorite characters ever. Just and also just seeing him ride a motorcycle was just really awesome
right?
Yeah.
because he
All right.
debuted that in 2000 at during the Rock Hunter Hearst Helmsley Iron Man match. He came out.
Because we'll get to probably Kane's history in a second here, but didn't Kane light him on fire in a casket? Then he disappeared for a little bit and then came back and reinvented himself.
Yeah, 1998 Royal
Mhm.
Rumble.
Yeah.
Is when Kane and Paul Bearer locked him in the casket, which he wasn't really in. Don't worry, people. He wasn't really
What?
burning the casket.
Kayfabe, Adam. Kayfabe.
Sorry. I know we talked about it last week. It's dead, just like the Undertaker. But no, it was they and then the axe, and then the gasoline and lighting on fire. Which, by the way, they got in trouble with.
What?
I don't know if you guys ever watched the they had the documentary on Peacock where it's the Brothers of Destruction. They sit with Kane and Undertaker sit and talk about their history with each other and basically how they also started on their own. But they talked about that match because they were worried with the fire marshal with the flame. They're like they didn't want us to pour gasoline. They said they wanted us to just light it, but they didn't want us to pour a lot of gasoline because the fire marshal had an issue with it inside the building, and they didn't want the smoke to go all through the arena. And
Yeah.
so, like, they talk about this, so it's like one of the craziest things ever, but it worked, and the visual of it was just awesome.
Wow. So, speaking of Kane, 1997, you would have the brothers face off after The Undertaker killed his family. He thought he killed Kane too. So 1997 at Bad Blood, Kane and Paul Bearer would come to the ring. Kane would rip off the door, one of the most iconic scenes of Kane, and tombstone the Undertaker in the middle of Hell in a Cell. What did you guys think of that when you guys first saw Kane? Like, what did you guys think about the whole, like, his stance, the way that he walked like a monster? And, of course, we'll ignore the rest in peace.
I think when you first debuted, because they really hyped him up. Paul Bearer hyped him up, and like the way they did it, I think was brilliant. The whole thing when he just came out of nowhere, the explosion, Kane walks out, and then you hear the line, "That's gotta be Kane," and like that right there, it just kind of sealed the deal. And then with the look of him and just the way he was walking to that ring, you knew that okay, yeah, okay, that's Kane, that's the dude they've been talking about. I see what they're talking about now. And when he went in there and tombstone the Undertaker, I thought to myself, "Oh, this is going to be a great rivalry. This is going to be fun." and I wanted to see what they were going to do with it. How far they go with it? How just how far would they go? That was like my first thought.
And looking at it too, like they basically had what decades of a rivalry. Looking at it, because you had the first moment, in 1997 at Bad Blood, and then at the Royal Rumble in 1998. That's when you thought Kane was coming out to save the Undertaker, which he did from Degeneration X, but then you would have where at the end where Kane would lock Undertaker in the casket, like Adam was saying, and lit that some bitch on fire.
And that visual too, the visual of it, of Kane kneeling and doing like the hand thing,
Yeah.
like it was the coolest visual I've ever seen. And I'm like, oh my god, they burned the Undertaker.
Crazy, like just to look at, like, you killed a man, my God,
Well, he still lived.
Right?
Still lived.
Still lived and became the American badass at that point. Am I correct?
No,
right?
so what happened was that led to their match at WrestleMania.
Oh, right, yeah.
So he burned them alive, and then images started happening, and Undertaker finally returned and finally said, all right, I'm going to face you at WrestleMania. That was WrestleMania 1998. That might have been my favorite WrestleMania. Out of all the WrestleManias, 1998 is by far my favorite because it had some of the best freaking matches. Because you had Stone Cold versus Shawn Michaels in the main event with Mike Tyson as his enforcer. You had Ken Shamrock versus The Rock for the Intercontinental title. You had the return of Legion of Doom with Sonny. You had one of the coolest lightweight matches between Taka Michinoku and oh my god, I keep forgetting his name. Well, let's just say it was one of the best lightweight matches. And then obviously you had Kane and Undertaker, which was the match that everybody wanted to see finally. They wanted to see these two guys go at each other, not knowing that Undertaker and Kane / Glenn Jacobs have already wrestled each other in the past in independent promotions. Like they've had 3 or 4 matches way before this Kane Undertaker storyline, which is great. But to put it at WrestleMania and finally beat him after 3 freaking tombstones, and he finally beats his brother and puts it to rest for the time being.
And then you would see their first team up a little bit later, where they would become a heel tag team. Remember what year that was when they would go, where they were basically in a handicap match where against Stone Cold Steve Austin, trying to take the belt off Austin.
That had to have been 99 or 90.
That was 99.
Yeah, 99. Yeah. Where Vince McMahon put the crazy stipulation that Undertaker could not pin Kane and Kane could not pin Undertaker for the championship. They had to pin Stone Cold. And of course, you had a really weird decision where both of them pinned Stone Cold at the same time. So, do you guys remember? Do you guys remember that? And like, was that bad booking or was that a fun storyline? Like, what was your take on that storyline with Stone Cold?
Whoever wants to go.
Yeah.
I guess for me, I thought I was pretty funny storytelling, and I thought for me personally, like it made me laugh watching it. I was like, that's funny to me. That it's funny.
It makes that would be a pretty funny instance.
For me, I thought it was an interesting storytelling because it gave us so many good moments on TV. Because after that was the infamous Undertaker on the Zamboni, or not Stone Cold on the Zamboni.
Mm-hmm.
Like that gave us that because he jumped over security and clotheslined Vince McMahon in the ring while Kane and Undertaker just stood there and watched. That was just, and it was great. And then finally, it gave the story of Stone Cold finally having to beat both the brothers to even get his title back. And it was kind of the end of the whole Austin versus McMahon storyline as well. And it just involved Kane and Undertaker. And then once that story ended, that's what gave us the Brothers of Destruction.
that's crazy to look at it because they would fight off ECW and WCW in the invasion, and they would be the ones to unify the titles.
Yeah.
And then to look at from there, they would be separate after they would do their tag team run. They were separated for a few years, and then they would come back and do the same cycle all over again, and this time have a buried alive match, and then a Hell in a Cell match at So crazy to think about what crazy all the storylines involved the two. Because I think at one time wasn't Paul Bearer supposed to be their real dad? Didn't it happen?
Yeah,
storyline. Yeah, so it's very interesting, like all the different dynamics with it. And I think even a comic book came out of it too. So to look at their career, that's why it's so hard to remember the Saudi Arabia match because I don't even count that as well.
I'll try to forget.
I'm like Chris when it comes to some things, but
because that when they teamed up and then we got Shawn Michaels and Triple H.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Saudi money.
That's not my Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, Saudi.
That's not my Shawn Michaels. That's not my Triple H. That's not my Kane, and that's not my Undertaker. Sorry, that match was not my childhood.
That was some bootleg.
Yeah, it was just like, hey, let's get nostalgia in Saudi Arabia.
Yep. So before we start talking about Shawn Michaels, because that's probably the biggest, probably his biggest rivalry to date. And probably the most impactful storylines with those WrestleManias. So let me go through his list where he picked off at. So we talked about Psycho Sid, of course, at WrestleMania 13. WrestleMania 14 was against his brother Kane. 15, that's where we had a Hell in a Cell match, and he hung the Boss Man alive. Then at WrestleMania 17, he went up against Triple H in a singles match. I didn't realize this, but I didn't realize that he was in a no disqualification match against Ric Flair at 18. Do you guys remember that one?
Yeah. That was basically the storyline of Ric Flair basically putting his role as co-GM, whatever, and basically resigning and giving Vince full control of GM and running stuff by himself to have this match with The Undertaker. And actually, that match was actually the first acknowledgement of Undertaker's streak.
Really?
Yeah. So that's when they start it was that it was I think it was Rick that mentioned that. Like Rick brought it into the storyline saying at WrestleMania I'm going to beat you and give you your first loss at WrestleMania because you've never lost at WrestleMania.
Huh. That's crazy. So
we got to acknowledged.
So we got to thank Ric Flair for that, for starting the streak and making that such a legendary part of the Undertaker's career. Huh. I did not know that.
Damn,
so just looking at his matches. So WrestleMania 19, he defeated the Big Show and A-Train in a 2-on-1 handicap match. WrestleMania 20, he went back to facing Kane. 21, Randy Orton. 2022, Mark Henry in a casket match. I'm curious how he fit Mark Henry in the casket because Mark Henry's a big man.
Big enough.
They probably get
remember.
True.
Also, the match against Randy Orton is the first time he was challenged at WrestleMania specifically for the streak.
Yeah.
Crazy. Wow.
So explicitly. So since WrestleMania 2021 with Randy Orton is when every WrestleMania after was his streak on the line.
Wow, that's crazy. So he basically put his streak, and then there was a couple of championships between that too. I know he 2023 beat Batista. 24 he beat Edge, and then of course that brings us to Shawn Michaels for WrestleMania 25 and 26. So
those were iconic.
Yeah, and just looking at too, how looking at it with their first big match was it 1997? Was that when they did the first Hell in a Cell?
Yeah, it was Bad Blood.
Bad Blood 97. That's when that first big rivalry was in Hell in a Cell. looking back at it, it was like the perfect way. Shawn Michaels at the time was he like the biggest heel during that time frame in '97, or was
Yeah,
he just
I would say so. I would say he was one of the biggest. Well, he was split because all the ladies loved him, but all the guys hated him.
right?
So, but he was supposed to be a heel back then because he at that point he was aligned with DX, but even DX was starting to get liked a little bit. So he was kind of in between. But yeah, no, So his time during then he was in between heel and face.
So if I remember correctly, wasn't it Survivor Series? No, it was SummerSlam, right? That's when Shawn Michaels would cost the Deadman the championship against Bret Hart. Is that where it all started, or am I missing something from there?
Yeah, no, that's where that rivalry started. Shawn Michaels was the guest referee in that match with Bret Hart and Undertaker, and Bret Hart spat in Shawn's face, and he swung the chair and hit the Undertaker instead, and had to count the pin for Bret Hart. So that led to the match between him and uh, uh, Undertaker.
Yeah,
Bad Blood, and that actually led to also, I believe, at that time after Kane debuted and cost Undertaker that match. That's the same year, the '97 match where it was the infamous Montreal screw job.
Oh, geez. Talk
So
about a
the same
crazy few
year, so
months.
Bad Blood, and the Montreal screw job were at the same year.
No kidding.
Yeah, so Bad Blood happened
That's
first in
wrong.
October, because Bad Blood happened in October, and then the following month that was the infamous Montreal screw job, because Shawn had then had that WrestleMania match in '98 against Stone Cold.
It's bad, bad year that year.
Right.
Because like that's not even considering the Monday Night War going on behind all this. So he had a bad year.
Right. Yeah.
He had a pretty bad year.
And then looking at it, Michaels just kept the heat going because then in 1998 at the Royal Rumble, he'd face Undertaker in a casket match, the WWE title on the line, and of course Kane would, Kane would interfere in that match as well.
Yeah, that's actually the match that Shawn Michaels kind of broke his back a little bit.
Oh, that's right.
When he tossed over the top rope and the casket kind of hit his back, and he was out for 4 years. So but he returned in 2002. But yeah, no, that match was, like I said, we've already talked about it with the infamous scene at the end.
Yeah.
But man, I know we're talking about it, and I maybe, but that might be the two matches he had with Shawn Michaels at both WrestleMania 25 and 26. I mean, they were both almost 30 minutes long. And they were just really good matches. They were it almost made you feel like it was the 90s again with those two matches. That rivalry they had in the 90s.
Well, the thing about it, it's almost that same emotion with Shawn Michaels' last match. Well, supposed to be his last match at the time. But if you think about looking back on it, having Shawn Michaels, retire Ric Flair, had that same emotion as when Undertaker retired Shawn Michaels.
The only thing I do like about how they brought back Shawn Michaels is Undertaker brought him back. It wasn't just anyone. Like, he had to bring him back. Like, it couldn't have been like someone else. That's the only thing that was good about the whole situation.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But
do you think
WrestleMania 25, their first match, WrestleMania, I actually thought Shawn Michaels was going to win it because he had a lot of near falls, and then that one scene with Undertaker doing the suicide dive kind of and landing on a cameraman. I don't know if that was a part of the show or if that was an actual cameraman that got in the way. That was pretty brutal.
It was part of the show.
Yeah.
Because that cameraman took it.
That's for sure. But just looking at the emotion where, Michaels went on to win the Royal Rumble in 2007 just to do it, and then almost damaging his relationship with his D-Generation, ex-partner Triple H at the time, and kind of being DX's, at the time, their last ride. and then
Yeah.
to see Shawn Michaels get so close but lose it, all those near falls and everything. Like that was probably two of the best WrestleMania matches in history.
You want to know what Shawn Michaels should have done?
What?
Should have had Hornswoggle under the ring on one side, X-Pac, Billy Gunn, Road Dogg,
Oh my gosh!
DX, help him win.
Oh,
And Hornswoggle is technically a DX member.
yeah, but he's not recognized in the Hall of Fame.
Honorary member, by the way, guys. Honorary
He's the
member.
mascot. Mascot.
Oh, let him in. Come on.
Yeah, he did join. And Mike Tyson was a member too, right? What was he?
That's true. Tyson is a member.
Yep.
Yeah, Mike Tyson was for a little bit
Can't
too.
exclude
Yeah.
anyone with how short or tall they are.
Well, and then as we start to wind down here on The Undertaker's career right before the streak, so after he defeated Shawn Michaels, he would have WrestleMania 27 and 28, where he would go up against the Game, Triple H. So the second one being the end of an era match where it was in Hell in a Cell, and Shawn Michaels was the special guest referee.
Shawn Michaels should have done Undertaker dirty for his career, and like they would have had the iconic moment together. DX would have.
Yeah, but
No,
just that
you have
the
to go
visual of all three men really walking out. It was
Yeah,
supposed to be the end of the era, but that visual of the three linking arms walking out and helping each other to the back, that another very special moment.
What
You know,
song
these
was
were-
playing when they did that? I forgot the name of the song.
I can't.
They
remember.
had I think it was I want to say Johnny Cash. I don't know, but I'm trying to think what song was
Johnny.
playing.
Was it? Was it?
I don't think they were having
know
a
if it was
song
Johnny-
playing as they were leaving. I think they were just playing the Undertaker's theme, and they just hugged at the top of the ramp.
May have been,
Yeah.
at the end of WrestleMania, well, they used to, like they would do like a big video package at the end of WrestleMania.
Yeah.
We show it.
No, it was like "Ain't Gonna Hold My Body Down."
Oh, it was. Yeah, I know what song you're talking about.
I forget. I'm not sure if that's Johnny Cash. I don't think that's.
No, that's Johnny Cash. You're right.
Oh, it is. Yes.
I just
Yeah,
can't
it's Johnny
remember.
Cash. Ain't No Grave. That's what
Yeah,
it's
Ain't No
it's
Grave.
called. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's called Ain't No Grave. But I think he
They had
used
that
that.
song. playing.
Yeah, but he used it for his return theme for when him and Triple H wrestled at in 2011's WrestleMania.
Okay. Yeah.
Because,
Okay. You're right.
because that he came on and then he was about to talk and then Triple H returned.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much when they established they were going to wrestle each other.
Yep. So, and then Connor's favorite homeboy at WrestleMania 29, he would defeat CM Punk. And probably one of CM Punk's, I had to say one of his, it wasn't like a letdown match at all, but I feel like it was underrated. I think especially at the time with being the summer of Punk and that whole mess and having basically, he should have been the main event that year with Taker. He really should have been. But I feel like it was kind of overshadowed that night.
Was it Rock and Cena?
It was I think it was Rock and Cena 1, yeah.
Yeah, it's Rock and Cena
Yeah.
first.
Either one of them could have been the main event. I don't know. Because it's hard to believe that the match that drew the most money in WWE history was Cena and Rock. It drew the most money of every single match. So, but I can't comment on how good the match was or wasn't because I got out of wrestling by then. I was gone.
It was good.
What year was this?
WrestleMania.
No,
2013?
I
Yeah, I think it was 2013, yeah.
I may have been watching. I don't know. Whenever Brock Lesnar came back,
Decent, man.
like the night he came back, I was out. I can't remember what year that was. I can't remember what year that. But
Yeah.
it was the one where he came back and beat up John Cena. Once he was
That was that
there,
Monday.
I'm out. I tried watching TNA. I'm out.
He just gave up on wrestling at that. Yeah, like you
No,
said many a times.
I was Connor. I was with you there. As soon as CM Punk left, I stopped watching WWE.
And then like I didn't even care for CM Punk at the time. But as I grew older, I liked a lot of wrestlers I didn't like back then. But for some reason, I don't know why. But once Brock Lesnar came back, I was out. Like once he came back the same night that it was at WrestleMania, possibly. He
Yeah, it was that Monday, I think.
I was out, and then I got back into wrestling when Brock Lesnar was world champion. So, Yeah. I wish I would have experienced it going to CM Punk and WWE.
And that's where I became a wrestling fan, was because of CM Punk. That's why I give him a lot of credit for, and I have a lot of respect for him, because he was the one that kind of sold me on the product besides Orton and Christian. And then looking at that match, Undertaker should have been a dream match, but I feel like he was. I think that's when his frustrations were really starting to kick in.
Yeah.
But he also missed.
After that, I was going to say, after that match, he got a really good title run, lost to The Rock, went to Undertaker, and after that, that was pretty much it. I think
because he would shortly leave after his Shield match in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, because they wouldn't do it. Like they had him against like Corporate Kane, and they put him against. It was like the Authority.
Shield,
like that was that one funny meme when you will see that CM Punk was laughing at Triple H or something with the Authority.
Yeah,
and he wasn't doing anything. So I mean, the best thing he did before he left was the Shield, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so he would go up against CM Punk. Of course, he'd win, and then the next year, that brings us to next week's episode, where the Beast Incarnate will try to challenge and defeat the Streak. So next week on Talking Elite is part 2, and we'll be doing a deep dive into the career of the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. So we will be doing a live recording next Thursday for that as well. So like I said, this was last week for a while. We'll have to do a pre-recorded, but next week we will do live. So make sure you guys join us in the comment section for next week as well, so you guys can talk along as we discuss probably one of the craziest big guys in professional wrestling. Looking at it, Brock has had probably one of the craziest careers almost of any wrestler out there, and I'm excited to do a deep dive into his career. And then part 3, we'll be discussing the ending of the streak, on the impact it had on us as wrestling fans, some of the rumors behind it, and then we'll also discuss whether the streak, whether the streak should have ended or if it should have kept going. Should the Undertaker retired of defeating the streak, because after that, kind of had a rocky couple matches with Roman Reigns, and wasn't really the best send off for the Undertaker. So we'll be discussing that for the next couple weeks. So we thank you guys so much for joining us for Talking Elite on our part 1 of ending the streak. So make sure you guys hit the bell down below. Make sure you guys subscribe, get notified for when we go live and post our podcast. I'd like to say thank you again to my panel. Thank you, Connor, Adam, and Mr. Jacobs. It was a pleasure speaking with you guys tonight. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we close off?
No.
Other than probably one of my favorite careers ever is The Undertaker. So I loved his whole character and his whole career in professional wrestling. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I would have something else to say, but I can't say it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, the one thing I'm looking forward to is something I can't say, which has to be done at the end of the show, which you'll see in just a minute.
Of course.
Yeah, he's like the main reason I became a wrestling fan. So I owe all that to Taker. And,
a lot of people, Mr. Jacobs, a lot of people are in that same boat where, just that figure, just a dead man, really a gimmick and a character that should not work. But Mark Calloway, respect to the legend, made that work and made a lot of us wrestling fans. So thank you, Mark, for everything that you've done for our wrestling business. I feel like this is a good way to sign us off. So we thank you, Mark, and we'll be discussing next week Brock Lesnar. So stay tuned. Thank you again to my wonderful panel, and thank you guys so much for listening. Leave a comment below what your favorite Undertaker match was, and we will see you guys next week for part 2 of Ending the Streak.
And good night.